Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia, where it's already been crazy the day before we leave. Welcome to the let's start again. Welcome to the Academy for Complex Trauma. My name's Linda and I'm your certified trauma recovery coach. This morning, I want to extend what we began to talk about yesterday with major depressive disorder plus complex trauma and the impact on the brain. Now, I want to talk about the brain, but not in the same language of neurology and neuroception and all that wonderful stuff. I want to talk about it in a way that we can easily relate and we can easily begin to change things up in our day-to-day life. Now, the impact on our brain is really significant, especially in our cognitive functions, which means all the parts that are movable inside of us as well, and like when we can take action. So if we look at cognitive functions as actions, then we want to turn everything around and begin to be able to say, right, okay, this is what's missing. This is what I'm not able to do at the moment. So I want to be able to implement that into my life. So one of the things that can be missing is language. So that was one of the major things that I lost when my cognitive functions went offline. So I couldn't talk. It was hard to process what people were saying. It was like someone would say something and I'd just have a blank look on my face and like, I really don't know what they've just said. And I can't talk or respond either. So that's how severe it can be. But what do we want to do when we try and write and we can't put words down in an order? What do we want to do when we can't express ourselves and we've lost so much of our memory as well? One of the things that's easy to do is sit down and be in a Facebook group or anywhere online, actually, any social media platform, and begin to talk to other people. That's how I began to be able to regain some language, is because I could sit there and go, okay, I know what word I want. I can't think of it. I can't remember it. But what I'm going to do is think of a word like it. And then I'd pull up the thesaurus and say, okay, I can think of a word like it, put the word that's like it into the thesaurus, and then go through the list of synonyms, similar words, and then I would be able to go, right, oh yeah, that's the word I'm thinking of. So we do have the capacity to rebuild our language, even though we may have lost a lot of our language. And I know even now there can be times if I'm overtired and I can't think of a word, or I just can't string the sentence together, but I can still go and use the thesaurus and go, right, yeah, that's what I want to say. And it might sound a bit funny at first, but when it comes down to, do we want to remember our language? Do we want to be able to put words back together in order that we can communicate what's happening for us and reply to other people? Our recovery to remission journey is always going to be about, am I ready? Am I ready to take the next step and to be well? Or what is it I can do to take the one next step? And am I willing to put in the time and effort? And we have to ask ourselves these questions so that we know when we're ready and when we're not ready, or when we're willing or we're just choosing not to be willing sometimes as well. It's a challenging journey. It really is. Another thing that we can do around language, apart from being on social media and choosing to regain our language, is movement. Movement of any type will begin to have our oxygen, and we'll have our blood flow carry our oxygen through our system. And as we breathe and get more oxygen in, it actually opens up parts of ourselves. And it's like we get this whole memory download of words that come in. And I had this happen twice. it was like two at different times, and the second one was more significant. It was like this whole volume of library just opened up and went swing, and all of a sudden I had this massive amount of language back. Good morning, Chan. And it was just incredible. It was like, oh, wow. So it is possible to regain our language centre, and it is also possible to have all those words come back. And it's through the persistence, the willingness to be consistent and persistent in pursuing our health, that the different parts of our brain will begin to open up again. Another way that we can help our brain is through brain training. When I had to do this works really, really well for memory. Good morning, Katja. So when I started to study, this is some years ago, and my memory was just terrible, like, trying to remember what someone said 5 seconds ago. Okay, let me give you a real example of what my memory was like. My kids would want to go through the McDonald's drive-through, Macca's, right? And normal situation is, okay, tell me your orders, get there, remember it, and say it all, right? And I had no way of doing that. And I'd get there, I'd have to say to them, all right, think of what you want. I'd get to the speaker. Now, in Australia, we talk our orders. I'm aware that in different countries, some people talk the order through with a number. So they'll say, I have number 43, 8, and 2. Other people in other countries pin their numbers into a keypad. But in Australia, we actually say our complete order. So I'd have to get there and say, okay, one order at a time, say one order, and go around the 3 kids and do that. And my memory was just terrible, and yet I knew that I had to go and start studying. So one of the things I did was online brain training, and I committed to doing it every day, and it did help my brain begin to process again and put things in order and come up. Just let me have a sip of my coffee. So I've been running around this morning. We leave on our international flights tomorrow, so let me just go back to the language. Katja said, I've noticed when I'm triggered, I lose my words. I can't speak. Absolutely. And I don't have a diagram handy for you, Katja, but the reason is because there's a part of our brain that goes offline, and it's the part that puts everything in an order for us. So when we're triggered and we're in a highly emotional state, we don't have access to the part that puts everything in order. And there's another part of the brain that's to do with our language center, and it will be offline as well. I only just found out about that part, the language center part, and it's offline as well because it's part of the limbic system that's just put us straight into fight, flight, or freeze mode. So it definitely is a thing. And Chan said, I've noticed I can't understand language. It's all scrambled. Absolutely. It's all part of the process that's happening when we're triggered and whatever else is happening upstairs. It can also be, the language center can be offline until we get it back online by doing various things in our day-to-day life. So we're actively pursuing remembering our language. And the thing is, we've got no control over it. When I had the 2 language downloads, 1, I had no idea about this concept, and 2, I had no idea that I'd ever regain it back again. And it's through a whole process of recovery that the language comes back, so that even when we're triggered, we have the ability to use our language and say, I'm triggered and this is what I need. So I was reading a specialist, they have a lot to do with the brain, but they're not a neurologist. And they were saying, you shouldn't ask people, are you okay? Well, the thing is, even if our language center's offline and we know that our language center either is offline or goes offline, we can still be responsible, and we can do a number of things. We can make up little meme pictures, and we can have on there, my brain's offline, my language center's offline, or my brain's offline, or I'm triggered, just write I'm triggered. And then another one say, this is what I need. There are many ways to be able to relay to other people what we need, and we are adults and we need to be responsible and say, okay, my language center's offline at the moment. Just use like computer analogies. This is, a supercomputer, and say, my brain's offline at the moment. Can we just sit until I can breathe? One of the best things you can do when you're triggered is have someone that you can just sit together, look in each other's eyes, and you don't even have to look in each other's eyes, look at each other breathing and regulate your breathing together, because it'll do two things. One, it helps the brain know that you're safe because you're connecting with someone and you're safe, okay? It's having someone that we connect with and that we're safe with, it's in relationship, okay? So when the abuse happened in relationship, so whether it's an abandonment trigger or physical, mental, emotional, sexual, etc. abuse, if we can sit with someone and just look at them breathing, and we can absolutely line up our breathing with them, it gives us connection, and it gives us safety, and it gives a non-verbal way for our brain to go, she's safe. We can just start to relax the whole internal network, the nervous system, the whole limbic system, etc., in the brain, everything that's happening in the brain. And we can begin to slow down and be in this moment. So we want to bring ourselves back to this moment and feel that we are safe. We want to experience that we are safe. And that will absolutely bring our language center back on. So that's another thing that we can do, is create those experiences where we're safe. Now, Chan, I know you have kids, and we can do this with our kids. So when our kids are going, nuts, let's face it, they lose the plot, emotional plot at times, we all do, and our kids do, we can sit down, and it's called co-regulate. We can co-regulate with them, so we can look at them. We can get them to put their hand on our chest and say, feel mummy breathing. And we can put our hand on their chest, because this is actually a somatic thing to do, is putting our hand on our chest. And we can put our hand on their chest and say, let's breathe together. They can be losing the plot and say, let's breathe together, okay? Can you ask them questions? Can you feel mummy breathing? Can you feel you breathing? Like, one, you're diverting their attention, okay? And two, you're connecting with them. Connection is vital to being able to regulate our emotions, okay? Somatic is feeling. So when someone says somatic, it means feeling, like they're going to use all of your senses, but we're going to look at the feeling side of things. So when we teach our kids this, it's a really, really connecting and vital way that they can learn to self-soothe. I always get stuck on the self-soothe. And we're teaching ourselves too that we can seek connection, that we're safe to seek connection, and it helps self-soothe our entire internal system. And I was listening to the foremost leader, one of the leaders in this area, and she's saying, and if you can't do it with someone immediately, you can do it with your pet. So there's a lot of people going through a lot of stuff, and they may just have their pet. But if you look at your pet and look into their eyes with love, which we all do, we all look at our pet, give them a pat, we look at them, we love them, that triggers all the good feels inside of us as well. And it helps us if we do that regularly, because then we get used to feeling the love again. Because one of the things that shuts down is another part of our brain, and it's like a fulcrum, it's the middle piece that helps keep the balance between our emotions and our thoughts in our brain, is the love center of the brain. And we want that center back online. So it's a good thing to sit each day and begin to feel how you feel about feeling love inside of you, and then to build that feeling of love inside of you into bigger and increasing amounts. I know from experience that when my whole brain shut down, that love was something that was lacking. And it's also a good thing to teach ourselves to feel safe, to feel love in the now, but also to feel safe that I can make the feeling of love build inside of me, and it's safe to feel increasing amounts of love. Katja said, hugging my two dogs is a big help. Absolutely. And looking into their eyes would be a really big connection as well, plus building that feeling of love and safety inside of you. And what we're doing is actually teaching our brain that we are safe to feel love. We are safe to feel connected. We are safe to build an increasing amount of love inside of us. And I can guarantee you it absolutely helps to do this when we're not triggered, because when we're triggered, then we've got something that we can rely on and go back to as knowing, if I do this, this is a really safe feeling for me, and it's in the now. So we want to try and bring ourselves back to being in the now, and think of other ways that you can begin to feel love inside of you in the now, and practice it. And with your kids, teach them that it's safe to feel love. And it's not about a hippie, pardon me, going back to the 60s stuff. This is a genuine, I want to be able to teach you that we're safe to feel love. Because then when we're in adverse circumstances, it's like I can go back to this because I'm in charge. I don't have to dissociate. This is a really good point. Chan says, once I get the increasing amount, it's like my brain switches that part of my brain off as a defense. Absolutely. So that is so true. So what we need to be willing to do is say two things. When you know that you're getting switched off, you want to say, I am safe to keep feeling this. So the affirmation that I am safe does impact our unconscious response to whatever was happening around us. And breathing deeply. So when I was at gym one time, this is last year I think, I realised that I'd been triggered and the dissociation was happening, and I went, oh, for goodness sake, I got so frustrated. I'm like, I'm at a gym where I've been, and I do the same thing every day when I walk in the door. This is crazy. And then I went, I'm just going to start saying I am safe, and I'm going to breathe and believe it. So I kept cycling, and I kept repeating, I am safe, as I looked around. Sight's 40% of what we take in, so we want to look around. And here's the thing, we're in charge of whether we do this or not, and it will feel like, the biggest fear to start doing something different. everything we do with complex trauma recovery, it's like, this scares the living daylights out of me to do something different, but I've got to be willing to negotiate with the fear and say, okay, you know, I'll only do this for a minute, let's have a go. And we find that once we cross that barrier of fear and we're doing it, we're safe. So I kept repeating, I am safe, and I kept breathing in and breathing out for 5 seconds each. And eventually I rode my way through the trigger. That's when I knew I was going to start overcoming the anxiety in day-to-day life and the triggers as well. So we can do it, but we've got to be willing to go, I'm going to face this fear that says if I do anything different, I'm going to pass out, I'm going to have a meltdown, it'll be the worst thing I ever do. Whatever the automatic thoughts are saying to you, you have to be willing to face up to them and say, yeah, no, I'm an adult now, I'm in charge, and we're going to have a go at this, okay? Look, I've read so many stories of people that say, this is how I feel. Yes, this is how we feel. It's real, it's genuine. But we get to be the adult driving the ship these days, not the child. Is it hard? Yes. Is the fear terrifying? Yes. But the fear doesn't get to run the show. We get to choose that I am safe and I can manage this. And there's any number of things that we can learn to do to manage what's happening. I don't have time to go into all of them, but when we use I am safe and I can manage this, it's like taking back our power as an adult and saying, I know I'm going to have to do this work, but it's worth it. I know this is going to be hard, but it's worth it. And if we can just start with, I am safe, I can manage this, and taking in deeper and deeper breaths, we get to begin to take back our life. I know it's a lot of information this morning, but I know it will also help. And we need it, all right, because we want to be able to have a life where we're filled with love, where our whole brain's back online and we can deal with it. Order is another thing that will help us. If we put our day-to-day life in order, irrespective of how many times it becomes disordered, we keep going back and we keep training our brain that we want to have our day in order. Then as we retrain our brain, the neuroception takes hold and we begin to be able to force our brain to go back to putting things in order as well. We create new neural pathways so that we get to have it easier each time we want order back. And I say it again and again. Is it hard? Yes. But we have to be willing to be consistent and committed to consistency so that we do get our life back. Now, tomorrow, it's been a massive last few days. We're packing madly today and we do leave tomorrow. So chances are I won't be doing a Facebook Live because we'll be running out the door tomorrow. But as soon as I can get on board and give you some details, I will. I'm doing something that'll be very, very big for me. I'm going out of the country. I haven't organised any of it. It's been organised for me. It's been a big challenge for me because normally I do have order to everything. But what I'm learning now is beyond order. So once I've learned order, what is it to be able to teach my system that I can relax and trust other people? Okay? Thanks, Katja. So I want to take you all along the journey of what it's like when we have learned order and language and trust and love into learning how to co-regulate with people that I've never met before, learning how to work out order in my day, and so much more. There's going to be so much more I can help teach you as we go along. Chan, the courage is there. We've just got to use it. Use it at home at first. We teach ourselves to be safe in what we're doing at home first. So it's like saying, okay, I'm triggered, I feel terrified. If I have to go and lie in bed and regulate, co-regulate, or regulate my nervous system, and that's where I feel safe to do it, that's where I start. Okay? You choose your starting point and go from there. Okay? All right, lovelies. I will see you when I can next be online, and hopefully once I'm overseas I'll be able to get into a rhythm again when I know what's happening. Use the information to the best of your ability, and just know that we can reclaim our lives, and our whole nervous system and brain can come back online, and we can live a good, healthy life. Blessings and dreams, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.